The North Carolina real estate market is crashing. For years, North Carolina has been one of America's fastest growing housing markets. From the booming suburbs of Charlotte to the tech corridors of Raleigh and Durham, home values seem to defy gravity. Families flocked here for affordable living, mild weather, and opportunity. Investors followed, convinced that the Tar Heel state had become a safe haven for real estate profits. But lately, the tone has changed. Something is shifting beneath the surface, and as we move deeper into 2025, that sense of unstoppable growth, the promise that North Carolina always goes up, is starting to crack. Across the state, numbers tell a story of a market losing steam. Inventory is rising, homes are staying on the market longer, and for the first time in years, experts are whispering a word that once felt unthinkable here: crash. In Charlotte, the beating heart of North Carolina's real estate engine, the story is both subtle and startling. Official data shows that closed home sales in the metro area are actually up, 8.2% higher than this time last year. On paper, that looks like strength, but dig deeper and the picture becomes murkier. Prices are barely moving. In June of 2025, the median home price in Charlotte was $435,000, just 2.4% higher than the year before. Average prices climbed only 2.8%. For a market once defined by double-digit surges, that's a slowdown bordering on stagnation. And while sales ticked upward, inventory exploded. The number of homes for sale in Charlotte jumped from 6,400 to nearly 9,000, a staggering 39% increase in just 1 year. What that means is simple. Buyers have options again. Sellers are no longer in control. The months of supply, a key indicator of balance, rose from 2.3 to 3.1. Still below the neutral mark of 4 to 6 months, but moving fast in that direction. Charlotte, once an undeniably seller's market, is beginning to tilt toward equilibrium, and in some corners toward oversupply. Buyers are taking longer to make decisions. The average home now sits on the market for 40 days, up nearly 38% from a year earlier. Sellers who just 2 summers ago could expect bidding wars and offers within hours are facing silence, price cuts, negotiations they didn't plan for. It's not just Charlotte. Across the state, a similar chill is settling in. In Raleigh, home values are forecast to dip 1.6% by the end of this year and 1.4% into next. Durham shows a smaller but noticeable slide, down roughly 0.8%. Even Asheville, long considered a mountain market darling, is trending down nearly 1% by mid-2026. To the east, in smaller markets like Goldsboro and Shelby, the correction looks harsher, with declines between 2 and 4% predicted over the next 12 months. And yet, statewide, the story isn't one of panic. It's one of transition and uncertainty. For years, North Carolina's rapid population growth masked the vulnerabilities of its housing market. The state added hundreds of thousands of new residents, driving up demand and prices. Developers rushed to keep up. But now, with mortgage rates hovering around 6.7% for a 30-year fixed loan, that demand is cooling. Buyers can't afford what they could a few years ago. Sellers can't expect what they once demanded. The math has changed. High mortgage rates have become the great equalizer and the great disruptor. As of mid-2025, the average 30-year fixed mortgage sits near 6.72%. That's nearly triple what buyers faced during the pandemic boom. A $400,000 home that once felt attainable now feels out of reach for many first-time buyers. And yet, strangely, this isn't 2008. This isn't a collapse fueled by reckless lending or toxic mortgages. It's something more subtle, a slow deflation of inflated expectations. According to Zillow's latest projections, Charlotte's home values are expected to dip about 1% by fall, then stabilize by mid-2026. Not a crash, but a correction, a pause. Still, for anyone who bought near the peak, even a small dip can feel catastrophic. Homeowners who stretch their budgets now face higher monthly payments, shrinking equity, and uncertainty about what comes next. North Carolina is not alone. Nationally, experts are warning that several states, including Florida, Texas, and California, could face sharper downturns. In parts of Florida, prices have already plunged by double digits. Cape Coral and Fort Myers are seeing homes sit unsold for months, with nearly 8% of homeowners underwater. Texas markets like Austin and Dallas are slipping too, weighed down by oversupply and cooling demand. So far, North Carolina has avoided that level of pain, but the warning signs are there. In Charlotte, the percent of original list price sellers are receiving has dropped to 96.8%, down from 97.9% a year ago. A small change, but a meaningful one. It signals the return of negotiation, of leverage shifting back to buyers. In the Triangle, builders are slowing new starts, fearful of overbuilding into a softening market. And in rural and smaller metros, the story grows darker. Areas that saw speculative buying during the pandemic are now facing the consequences. Homes linger unsold. Investors look to exit. Some markets, like Forest City and Morion, are projected to see consistent price drops into 2026. What's happening in North Carolina is a tale of rebalancing after years of runaway optimism. From 2020 to 2023, the state saw record-breaking demand. Remote workers fled expensive coastal cities for the promise of space, affordability, and charm. Charlotte became the new Atlanta. Raleigh became the new Austin. But booms don't last forever, and what goes up, like eventually, must come down, or at least come back to earth. The state's population growth remains strong, but even that can't outrun the math of higher interest rates and economic caution. The Federal Reserve's steady hand on rates has cooled the frenzy, and the result is a housing market rediscovering gravity. As of now, the overall decline is mild, measured in single digits, not double. But for many in the business, realtors, builders, investors, the emotional tone is unmistakable. Confidence has given way to caution. Across North Carolina, open houses are quieter. Signs that once read "coming soon" now sit for weeks. And behind every for sale sign, there's a family wondering, did we miss the top? For buyers, the power dynamic has shifted. For the first time in years, they can breathe, they can negotiate, they can walk away. But affordability remains a cruel paradox. Prices haven't fallen enough to offset high rates, leaving many locked out altogether. Meanwhile, sellers face a new reality. Price cuts are back, time on market is up, and equity growth, once the proud badge of North Carolina homeownership, has slowed to a crawl. Economists say this is the natural order of cycles. What we're seeing now, they argue, is a correction, a market returning to balance after years of distortion. But to the average homeowner, it doesn't feel like balance, it feels like loss. Because when your biggest asset stops climbing, or worse, starts slipping, it shakes something deeper than wealth. It shakes confidence. And in North Carolina, confidence built this market. Confidence in migration, confidence in growth, confidence in a better tomorrow. For now, the experts aren't predicting a catastrophic crash. According to the National Association of Realtors, home sales nationwide are expected to rise modestly through 2025 and 2026, with prices ticking upward by 3 to 4%. But forecasts don't ease anxiety. When a market that seemed unstoppable begins to slow, every statistic feels like a warning. Behind the numbers are real people. Young couples who bought high, retirees trying to sell, builders juggling unsold inventory. They all feel the shift. The story of North Carolina's housing market in 2025 isn't one of collapse. Not yet. It's one of correction, uncertainty, and recalibration. A story of expectations catching up with reality. Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro. These cities have weathered economic storms before. Their economies are diverse, their appeal undeniable. People will keep coming, growth will continue. But the era of easy equity is over, at least for now. And so the question that lingers isn't whether the market will crash, but how deep the correction will go before it steadies. For every booming listing still commanding offers, there's another sitting silent. For every hopeful headline about growth, there's a statistic whispering decline. Markets rise and fall, but confidence, that's what truly sustains them. And across North Carolina, confidence is being tested. For some, this is the long overdue reset the market needed, a chance for prices to normalize and opportunities to return. For others, it's a frightening reminder that even the strongest markets are not immune to gravity. Either way, a new chapter has begun. The days of endless bidding wars and sight-unseen offers are fading. In their place, a more cautious, more realistic market is emerging. one that rewards patience over panic. But make no mistake, the shift is real. The numbers don't lie. Inventory up nearly 40%, days on market up nearly 40%, prices barely moving. Call it a slowdown, call it a correction, or call it what some already fear it to be, the beginning of a crash. North Carolina's real estate boom made millionaires, reshaped cities, and changed lives. But no boom lasts forever. And as the winds change, the state finds itself standing at a crossroads. Between the memory of unstoppable growth and the reality of a market finally catching its breath. The question now is simple, but its answer will define the next decade. Is North Carolina's housing market crashing, or just coming back to earth? Either way, though, the fall has begun.